My name is Marcus Bennett. I am 45 years old, and for most of my life I believed that success solved everything. For 12 years I built companies, signed contracts in glass offices, and slept in hotel rooms that all looked the same. Marble floors, quiet elevators, polite smiles from people who knew my name but not my story. I told myself I was doing it all for my family. My mother, my younger brother, the house where I grew up. Every month I sent money home, large transfers, more than enough to live comfortably. I never missed a month. And every time I called my mother, she said the same thing. "I'm fine, Marcus." So I believed her. Until one afternoon changed everything. It started with a red light. My car was moving slowly through the old market street of my hometown. I hadn't been back in almost 10 years. The city looked both familiar and strange, like a childhood photo you suddenly see as an adult. My driver stopped at the light. Outside, the market was alive. Women shouting prices. Children running between people's legs. The smell of roasted corn drifting through the air. I wasn't really paying attention. Until I saw her. An old woman standing behind a small wooden table. She was arranging tiny plastic bags filled with roasted peanuts and dried pepper. Her back was slightly bent, and her hands moved slowly but carefully, placing each bag into a neat row. I noticed her hands first. Something about them stopped my breath. Then she lifted her head, and my heart dropped into my stomach. Because I knew that face. The small scar above the eyebrow. The way she tilted her head slightly when she concentrated. The woman selling peanuts in the hot sun was my mother. Her name is Grace Bennett. She was 72 years old, and she was working alone on the side of the road. For a moment, I couldn't move. My chest felt tight. This made no sense. I had been sending money for years. More money than she could ever need. Yet there she was, selling peanuts like she had nothing. "Stop the car," I said quietly. My driver pulled over. I opened the door and stepped into the heat. My expensive shoes sounded loud on the cracked pavement as I walked toward her. She didn't see me at first. She was counting coins into a small tin. 2 steps away from her table, I stopped. My shadow fell across the peanuts. She looked up. Our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. Her face changed slowly. Confusion. Recognition. Then something else. Not joy. Not pain. Something in between. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly looked down again and began rearranging the peanuts that were already perfectly arranged. "Mom," I said softly. Her hand stopped. "Marcus," she whispered. I looked at the table. The peanuts. The cracked bottle of water. The plastic stool. This wasn't something someone did for fun. This was survival. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She didn't look up. "I'm working." Her voice was calm. Too calm. "How long?" She picked up a bag of peanuts and placed it back down. "Long enough." That answer hit me harder than any explanation could. I took a deep breath. "Come with me," I said. She shook her head. "I still have customers." There were no customers. But she slowly began packing her things anyway. Not because I asked. Because the day was ending. That difference mattered. I picked up her bag. She didn't protest. We walked to the car in silence. The driver opened the door. My mother looked at the leather seats for a moment before climbing inside carefully. She held her plastic bag on her lap the entire drive home. The house looked almost the same. But not quite. The gate hung slightly crooked. The garden was dry. A crack ran down the front wall. I suddenly realized something terrible. I had never actually checked. I had only sent money. I assumed everything was fine. Inside, the living room was clean but old. The sofa fabric was worn. The television was small. A Bible sat on the table beside a cup. I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Food, but not much. When I came back, my mother was watching me quietly. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning in my chest. Where did the money go? She looked at me calmly. I received money. Yes, I said, every month. She tilted her head slightly. How much do you think you sent? I told her the amount. Her expression changed. Only slightly. Then she went into her bedroom and returned with a small notebook. She handed it to me. Inside were dates and amounts, month after month, for 3 years. The numbers were tiny compared to what I had sent. Not half, not a quarter, barely anything. I read the numbers again. Then I opened my phone and showed her the transfer history. She looked at the screen, then at the notebook, and slowly sat down. Someone had been taking the money. Every single month. For 3 years. My voice felt strange when I asked the next question. Who helped you open this account? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. My brother, I said quietly. She nodded. My younger brother Daniel helped me set it up when the bank changed systems. Daniel, my brother, 39 years old. The one who visited her every week. The one who called every Sunday. The one who stood beside me at our father's funeral. I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I asked the hardest question. Why didn't you tell me? She looked down at her hands. Daniel has 3 children, she said. He had debts. I didn't want to break the family. Her voice never shook. She wasn't asking me to understand. She was simply telling the truth. And somehow that hurt more than anger would have. That night, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. Cancel everything for the next 3 days. She started listing meetings. I repeated myself. Everything. Then I hung up. I looked at my mother. I'm staying. She nodded quietly and went to the kitchen to cook dinner. And as I sat there listening to the old ceiling fan clicking above me, I realized something painful. For 12 years, I believed I was taking care of my family. But the truth was simple. I had only been sending money. And sometimes money is the easiest way to avoid seeing what's really happening. The next morning, I woke up in my old bedroom. The same room where I had slept as a boy. The mattress was thinner than I remembered. The ceiling fan turned slowly above me, making a soft clicking sound with every rotation. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then the memory returned. My mother in the market. The peanuts. The notebook. My brother. I sat up slowly and rubbed my face. From the kitchen, I could hear the quiet sound of a kettle. My mother was already awake. She always woke early. Some things never change. When I walked into the kitchen, she placed a cup of tea in front of me without saying a word. I sat down at the small table. The sunlight came through the window, lighting the dust floating in the air. Do you still go to the market every day? I asked. She nodded. Early, before the good spots are taken. I looked at her feet. She was wearing worn slippers. Near the door, there was only one other pair of shoes. Her church shoes. That was it. I finished my tea and picked up the car keys. I'll drive you, I said. She looked at me with mild surprise but didn't argue. The market was already busy when we arrived. People greeted her immediately. "Grace, good morning. Your peanuts yesterday were good. Where did you get those peppers?" She smiled and greeted everyone back. It hit me then. My mother had a whole life here. People knew her, respected her, laughed with her. She set up her small table while I stood nearby. She didn't ask for help, but she didn't tell me to leave either. In 20 minutes, she had already sold several bags. She argued cheerfully with a man over the price of peppers. Then she laughed. A real laugh. Deep and warm. And I realized something that made my chest tighten again. I hadn't heard my mother laugh like that in years. Because I was never around long enough to hear it. After she settled into her routine, I quietly returned to the car. I knew where I needed to go next. My brother's house. Daniel lived only 15 minutes away. When I pulled up to the gate, I noticed something immediately. The house looked good. Fresh paint. New roof tiles. A recent car parked in the yard. I knocked on the door. Daniel's wife opened it. "Marcus," she said, surprised. "What a wonderful surprise." She called for Daniel. A moment later, my brother walked into the living room. He smiled wide when he saw me. "Marcus." He hugged me. I hugged him back. For a moment, everything felt normal. Too normal. We sat down. His living room was nicely furnished. Large television. Comfortable sofas. Children's toys in the corner. He asked how long I was in town. "A few days," I said. He asked if I wanted a drink. I shook my head. "I came to talk." Something shifted in his face. Very small. Very fast. But I saw it. "Let's take a walk," I said. He agreed immediately. Too quickly. We walked down the quiet street together. At first, he talked about his children. School. Football practice. Normal things. I let him talk. Then he stopped. Because he knew. "I checked the account," I said. He didn't respond. I told him the numbers. Exactly what I had sent. Exactly what our mother received. Exactly how long it had been happening. He stood very still. Finally he spoke. "At first it was temporary," he said quietly. "My business failed. I had debts. I thought I would fix it before anyone noticed." I said nothing. He kept talking. "I still took care of her," he said quickly. "I visited every week. I brought groceries. I made sure she had food." His voice cracked slightly. "You were never here." The words hung in the air between us. He wasn't entirely wrong. That made it worse. After a long silence, I asked him one question. "Did you ever tell her the truth?" He looked down at the ground. That was my answer. A motorcycle passed in the distance. The leaves of a nearby tree rustled in the wind. My brother wiped his face. "I was going to fix it," he said quietly. I swear I was. I believed him. But believing him didn't undo 3 years. "Come to the house tonight," I said finally. He looked up. "Bring nothing," I continued. "Just yourself." Then I walked back to the car. I sat there for a long time before starting the engine. I wasn't a man who showed emotion easily. But inside my chest, something felt heavy. Something close to grief. That evening, Daniel arrived just after sunset. My mother greeted him normally, like any other day. She asked about his children. He answered politely. But his eyes kept moving toward me. Finally, I said, "Mom, Daniel and I need to talk." She looked at both of us for a moment. Then she nodded and went back to the kitchen. Daniel sat down on the edge of the sofa. His hands were clasped tightly together. I spoke calmly, the same way I spoke during business negotiations. "This is what will happen," I said. "I'm opening a new bank account tomorrow. Only Mom and I will control it." He nodded. "The house will be repaired." He nodded again. "She will have a generator, a car, and proper help." Another nod. "She will never need to sell peanuts again unless she chooses to." Then I continued, "I am not cutting you off." He looked up quickly. "You're my brother," I said, "and Mom would never survive watching her sons become enemies." His shoulders relaxed slightly. "But the money you took," I continued calmly, "you will repay it. To Mom. Every month." His face tightened, but he nodded. "I will," he said quietly. Then I said something he didn't expect. "I'm also going to help you fix your situation." He looked confused. "You clearly needed help," I said, "and you were too proud to ask." His eyes filled with tears. "I was ashamed," he admitted. "I always felt like you succeeded at everything, and asking you for help felt like admitting I failed." I looked at him for a moment. Then I said something I had never admitted before. "You couldn't ask me," I said, "because I was never around." The silence between us softened slightly. From the kitchen, my mother called, "Dinner is ready." We sat at the table together, just like when we were children. A big pot of stew, rice, warm bread. My mother told a funny story about a man at the market who argued with her over $5 and then tripped over his own shoe while leaving. Daniel laughed first. Then I laughed. Then she laughed too. And for the first time since I returned home, the house felt warm again. But we didn't know yet. The biggest problem was still coming. 3 days after that dinner, I returned to my main city. Work pulled me back like gravity. Meetings, flights, contracts. But something inside me had changed. For the first time in years, I started calling my mother every Sunday. Not just sending money. Calling, listening. And for a while, everything seemed calm. Until one morning, my phone rang before sunrise. It was Daniel. His voice sounded strange. Tight. "Marcus," he said, "there's a problem." I sat up immediately. "What happened?" "A man came to Mom's house last night," he said. My stomach tightened. "What kind of man?" "He had documents," Daniel continued. "Papers about the house." My heart started beating faster. "What papers?" Daniel inhaled slowly. "He says the house has a loan on it." For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. "That's impossible," I said. But Daniel kept talking. "He said the payment stopped years ago. He says if the debt isn't paid, the house can be taken." My chest went cold. "Send me the documents," I said. "Now." Within minutes, my phone filled with photos. Loan agreements. Property registration forms. Legal stamps. I read them twice. Then a third time. My jaw tightened. The borrower's name was not my mother. It wasn't mine either. It was a name I didn't recognize. But the property address was exact. My childhood home. I called my lawyer immediately. She reviewed everything. 40 minutes later, she called back. Her voice was careful. "The documents appear legitimate." My stomach sank. "The loan was registered 5 years ago," she continued. "Payments were made for the first year, then they stopped." "How much is owed now?" I asked. She named the amount. It was large. Very large. But that wasn't the worst part. The property can be seized if the debt isn't resolved, she said. Soon. I ended the call and stared at the documents again. Then I booked the first flight home. I arrived late that night. But instead of going to my mother's house first, I went to Daniel. He opened the door looking exhausted. We sat at his kitchen table. I placed the documents between us. "Do you know this name?" I asked. He looked down at the paper and froze. That was all the answer I needed. "Daniel," I said quietly, "tell me the truth." He rubbed his face slowly. Then the story came out. Years ago, when his business collapsed, he borrowed money from a private lender. A dangerous one. A man named Victor Rojas. The interest was brutal. Daniel tried to keep up with the payments, but eventually he couldn't. That's when Victor offered another solution. Collateral. The family house. Daniel believed he could pay it back quickly. He believed he could handle it. But he couldn't. And now the debt had grown. Silently. For years. While our mother slept in that house every night, not knowing it might be taken from her. The kitchen was very quiet. The refrigerator hummed softly. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Daniel stared at the table. His hands were shaking. "I never meant for it to go this far," he whispered. I believed him. But belief doesn't erase consequences. Finally, I stood up. "Go to sleep," I said. He looked surprised. "We'll deal with it in the morning." The next morning, I went to my mother's house. She was already outside in the garden, watering the pepper plants she had grown since I was a child. She smiled when she saw me. "Marcus, when did you arrive?" "Last night." She waved dismissively. "You should have come straight here." I sat at the kitchen table while she served breakfast. Then I told her the truth. Everything. The loan. The debt. The risk to the house. She listened without interrupting. Her hands rested calmly on the table. When I finished, she asked only one question. "Will the house be safe?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. And I meant it. The next 48 hours were war. Legal war. I hired 2 lawyers, a property specialist, and a financial investigator. We pulled every document connected to the loan. Then we contacted Victor Rojas directly. He was not used to dealing with people who had stronger lawyers than him. The negotiation was short and unpleasant. But in the end, the debt was paid. The claim on the house was removed. The property was clean. My mother's home was safe again. That evening, I sat with her in the living room. The new generator hummed softly outside. The refrigerator was full. The house repairs had already begun. She held her cup of tea quietly. "I was thinking about your father today," she said. "What about him?" She smiled slightly. "He used to say something." I waited. A family that hides things from each other slowly becomes strangers. The words stayed in the air. "I thought I was protecting everyone," she said softly. "But maybe silence wasn't the right choice." I looked at her. "I understand why you did it." She nodded. Then she said something that hit deeper. "I used to wait for your calls on Sundays." She wasn't accusing me, just telling the truth. "I'll call every Sunday now," I said. She looked at me sideways, the way mothers do when deciding whether to believe you. "Good," she said. 3 months later, I returned again. Not for business, just for the weekend. The house looked different now. Fresh paint, new furniture, strong gate, bright lights. My mother walked me through each room proudly, like it was a palace. In my old bedroom, she had placed a small photograph on the shelf. Daniel and me as children, standing in front of that same house. I picked it up. "I don't remember this photo," I said. She smiled. "That's because you never looked." The next morning, we walked through the market together. She didn't sell peanuts anymore, but she liked visiting the market. Everyone greeted her. She introduced me simply. "This is my son. Not the rich one. Not the businessman. Just her son." And somehow that felt better than any title I'd ever had. When it was time for me to leave, she walked me to the gate. She straightened my collar like I was still a boy going to school. "Call on Sunday," she said. "I will." "I mean it," she added. "So do I." The car pulled away. I looked back once. She stood at the gate in her blue dress, watching. I raised my hand. She raised hers. Later, before my flight, I called her. "I just wanted to say one more thing," I said. She waited. "I'm sorry," I said, "for the years I was gone, for believing money was enough." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "You were always a good man, Marcus. Being sorry is not the end of something. It's the beginning." And that's where the real change started. Not with money, not with success, but with something much simpler. Calling on Sunday, listening, and never driving past the people you love without stopping the car.